At different fora, Nigeria's Finance Minister, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, who was speaking there, had said that the nation's journey to bouncing back in terms of the economy is raising hopes that we will soon be out of recession. Citing GDP figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics and the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mrs. Adeosun says she believes that the phase the nation is currently is almost stable. Now, joining us on the News at 10 to discuss these developments along with the tax initiative is the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Thank you very much. Now, from your perspective, is Nigeria's economy out of the woods?
Well, we are almost out of the woods as far as the narrative or discussion on recession is concerned. That's when we talk about, discussing it academically.
Okay.
If by the next quarter we're able to record positive GDP growth and you're almost at that threshold, we'll have been out of recession. But the critical challenges of the economy still remains. The challenges of high costs of goods and services, both from the business perspective and from the citizen's perspective. Because if there is any major worry that the players in the economy have now and that the citizens have now is the high cost of goods and services, which are driven first by the high cost of energy, second, by the challenges of trade policy. I'm talking about import policy, tariffs, import restrictions, and the rest of them. Third, by the challenge of infrastructure, transportation, and of course you have the issue of high cost of funds. So these are variables that we need to actually get the economy properly to its feet. So we need to address this to ensure that the economy properly gets back on its feet. So it's not enough to just academically get out of recession. We need to actually get the economy moving.
Now, from the perspective of manufacturers, who one would call your key constituency, as it were, are they also moving out of recession, do you think?
They are. They are. Confidence is gradually returning even to manufacturing. The challenges of liquidity that you had in the foreign exchange market has eased significantly. And of course, some of the sales are improving, confidence is returning. Then the inflows, in terms of inflows of forex in and out of the economy, is also improving. So to that extent, I will say that even the manufacturing sector is also gradually recovering. But certainly they are not there yet.
Yeah, because it would appear as if there are still problems with capacity utilization. There are still problems in particular with, you mentioned the import and export policies and so on. I wanted to zero in, for example, on forex, even though you mentioned that. Yeah. Yes, the interventions have brought down the exchange rates, but they're still quite high.
They are still quite high.
And then there are people talking about interest rates also.
Interest rate is a very big issue, because if you actually want to get the economy fully back on track, you need domestic investors to be part of it. Because if you don't have domestic investors in the mainstream of the economy, you cannot have an inclusive economy. And it is through inclusiveness that you can actually grow the economy, generate the desired multiplier effects, and create the kind of jobs that we need. But for the domestic investors to drive the economy, they need funds, they need capital. You can't easily drive an economy with an interest rate of 30%, 25%. In some cases for the SMEs, it's even well above 40, 50%. So interest rate is a major issue, although there's always this debate by the CBN that it will trigger inflation and all of that. But if you are faced with a choice between getting the economy to recover and exposing yourself to some element of inflation, you actually go for getting the economy to recover. Now, so we need to do quite a lot to bring down
the interest rate. Yeah. Now, you heard the finance minister talking about capturing more people under the tax base, and I think the target is $1 billion. Yeah. Will manufacturers, given the background you've just given, can they, first of all, in your view, do the manufacturers at this point pay taxes? And do they pay the adequate taxes?
They are paying taxes. But again, you have to pay tax within what the law stipulates. And that is the caution I like to give as we drive for this tax revenue. Because the experience of those of us in business is that each time there is this aggressive drive for tax, most of these operators go beyond the limits of even what the law says. We have that experience from the customs, for instance. We have the experience from regulatory agencies who come with all sorts of demands for fees. We have this kind of challenges even from state governments and local governments. So these are issues. So whatever we want to do, it is good to bring a lot of people into tax, but it has to be done strictly within the confines of the tax laws, and it has to observe the principle of equity. Because in any tax administration, a cardinal principle that needs to be respected is the principle of equity in taxation. That is very key.
It's on that note that we're going to have to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Muda Yusuf.
Thank you very much.
Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry.